In this video, I'm taking you on a journey through the hidden wooden architecture of Ukraine, from a church with a tower built like the Leaning Tower of Pisa and a rare hut-type temple that looks more like a house than a church, to a masterpiece that blends Orthodox and Catholic styles in a way you have never seen before. Cossack Baroque? Never heard of it? Then I'll show you what it looks like in real life. We'll explore a 12th century castle where I was mistaken for a famous photographer. From the peaceful, clear waters of Lake Svitiaz to an industrial scene straight out of the game S.T.A.L.K.E.R, this is a photo adventure full of contrasts. I'm chasing the light with my Nikon F3 and my Wista 4x5 large format camera. It's a trip about history, art and the limits of my own skills. Welcome to episode 7 of my photo adventures. Grab your film and let's go. Sometimes, as film photographers, we don't need to travel long distances to find a subject for a photo project. I was scanning Google Maps for my next big photo adventure when I stumbled upon two churches nearby, just an hour drive from my house. Of course, I had to visit these places. After mowing the grass and cleaning the area around my home, I set aside one day for this kind of road photography. In the village of Kremenets, the church was built in the traditional wooden style typical of the Chernihiv region. But this church has a small peculiarity, a slightly crooked second tower that looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Little is known about this church online, so the cause of this abnormality is unclear. Knowing the skills of people who work with wood, I can only guess it was done intentionally for a purpose, rather than by mistake. Perhaps they were preserving old wood in the structure or using a unique type of framing. The question remains open. I used my Nikon F3 with a 24mm lens, Phonopan 400 and a cheap polarized filter, which doesn't seem to do anything except creating vignetting. I walked around the church, snapped a few frames and talked with the man who lives right next to it. Then his neighbor came by and the conversation somehow switched from the church to cutting grass. In villages, it's a big deal because you have to do it regularly, once or even twice a month. I left them, drove out of the village and decided to photograph the church from afar with my telephoto lens. Then I drove to another village with the peculiar name Chernihiv. It could be translated as nothingness. This village has a wooden church that looks more like a hut. The hut-type church is a fairly popular structure throughout Ukraine. It's a sort of unique type of wooden sacral architecture that outwardly resembles an ordinary residential house. Instead of high domes, the log cabins are covered with a single four-sloped or gabled shingle roof, and only a wrought iron cross indicates that it is a cabin. It was hot and dry, everything was scorched by the sun. I tried my best to work the scene with the camera, and there are some photos I actually like, especially where the shadows from the leaves play a shimmering game with the sun on the walls. The trees around the church were also a nice touch, helping to show the character of the place. On the road to these wooden churches, I saw a brick church that is older than any of them. The Church of St. Michael in Mostisha was built around 1782. This church and its surrounding territory look completely different from the previous ones, made of brick, covered in white plaster and surrounded by sturdy walls. It looks more like a fortress, which churches often were back in the day. People sought protection there not only for their souls, but for their lives. And now, everyone, brace yourselves for something I had never seen before: the St. Nicholas wooden church in the village of Horodets, Rivne region. This is one of the most unique wooden churches in the world. Why? Because it combines Eastern Orthodox religion and architecture with Catholic church building traditions. Look at this main facade with two symmetrical bell towers. You won't find this style anywhere else. This is how they built churches back then, a mixture of different cultures filtered through their own interpretations. Only a tiny number of such churches were ever built, and when I first saw this one on Google Maps, it blew my mind. When you study a subject for a long time, as in the case with my project on wooden churches, you become somewhat accustomed to their buildings. They start to look the same to your eye because often they are quite similar. But then you see something like this and you are struck by total awe. What is this? How and why? It's incredibly refreshing, especially during a long-term project. So, of course, I walked 330 degrees around the church to photograph it from every angle. But this photo adventure isn't over yet, because there is another quite special wooden church in the town of Stepan. Built around the middle of the 18th century, it stands out as truly unique among wooden churches. Everything about this church is unusual. First, it has a massive 5-part structure, which is not typical for this region, or probably any other. Second, the structure is cross-shaped. At the center is a tall square hall with 4 sections and an altar branching out from it. What does that mean? It means that if you were to look at the church from above or look at the architectural floor plans, you would see the shape of a cross. It's a simple design, but it's deeply symbolic, and believe me, not every building carries that kind of meaning. It features a Baroque style dome, and the whole building is wrapped in a low porch, making it look as though tiny houses are surrounding it. The purpose of this is to protect the base from moisture. Now, a little bit about the Baroque style in Ukraine, also known as Cossack Baroque. This was a dominant style in architecture, painting and other arts across Ukraine during the 17th and 18th centuries. It emerged from a unique combination of local folk traditions and European Baroque influences. That's what I like about wooden churches. They preserve ancient architectural styles. Despite wood being a more fragile construction material, these walls convey long-gone eras better than almost any other building. Leaving my photo project behind for a moment, we drove to Lake Svitiaz just to say goodbye to summer and swim in the clear water. I switched into vacation mode, though I still spend time trying to photograph the surroundings. Lake Svitiaz has the clearest water I've ever seen in a lake. There is also plenty of wildlife and, if you know where to look, places where there aren't many people. I photographed the lake in the evening, in the sun, without the sun, the birds and the boats lying lazily in the reeds. It's a cool place if you ask me. I definitely need to visit again. But for a film photographer, no rest is truly good unless it leads to another location to shoot. We arrived in the town of Kremenets, specifically at the site of 12th century castle. It feels like the true Middle Ages. The castle stands out on a mountain overlooking the modern town from above. I can only imagine that back in the day. It was a formidable fortress that few armies would ever think to storm. Now it sits peacefully under the sunset sunset covered in grass and wildflowers, which I immediately tried to capture. The light was beautiful, falling softly on the ancient stones. It's a shame I didn't have any color sheets for my large format camera, but you have to use whatever means you have. The Nikon F90 with the Cossack Baroque was probably the best choice for this situation, though I also used black and white film. After shooting the scene on 35mm, I pulled out the Wista 45. I only had black and white sheets, but there's nothing bad about large format. I tried using the Wista at a low angle to capture the wildflowers and the castle ruins in a single frame. Afterward, I went to capture the castle gates from the other side. My dedication to photography and visual storytelling caught the attention of the castle ward, who assumed I was a renowned photographer working for a major media outlet. Too bad he didn't know about my YouTube channel with nearly 10 subscribers. Kremenets is no ordinary historic town. It combines the past and the future in an unprecedented and unpredictable way. We went to explore the historic center with the remains of the 17th century Basilian monastery, the Jesuit college complex, one of the only Roman Catholic parish churches in Volyn, and the old Basilica of the Transfiguration. But first we encountered something that looked like it was taken straight after the game S.T.A.L.K.E.R or the Chernobyl exclusion zone. It's a cool scene if you ask me. I honestly don't know how a place like this exists right in the middle of the city. It should be a main tourist attraction, especially for film photographers. I can even imagine some very stylish music videos being filmed here. We caught the sunset in these spots as well. I was trying really hard to convey the mood and the light in my photographs, but sometimes you have to know the limits of your actual skills and just accept the moment. finish the trip, we visited the botanical gardens, which were so peaceful in the dimming light of the approaching night. There was a lot of contrast on this photo adventure, but the next ones are already waiting for me. So stay tuned and feel free to subscribe to the channel. You know, just so we can actually turn that fellow from the castle into a fan of a renowned YouTube photographer.